Society.
Strangers. Strangers in society.
Strangers on the internet.
The secret.
Strangers.
Society of welcome, stranger.
Strangers. Society.
Welcome to the secret society.
Strangers.
All right. Welcome back to the Secret Society of Strangers podcast. I'm Lee. I'm here with Josh and Jen.
What up?
Hello.
So before we get into everything today, we should do a little bit of house cleaning and take care of some stuff that we've been dealing with on the back end. I'm sure most of you that are loyal listeners have noticed that there was no episode last week, and we kind of jumped into another guest episode, so we got back-to-back guest episodes. We apologize for that. Like I said, we're shaking things up. That being said, we are saying farewell to one of the original strangers. Jamie is parting ways with the podcast. We wish her all the best, and hope that she really has all the best luck in the future.
Absolutely.
Now, on to the exciting stuff. So, that being said, again, me and Josh, we're only two. We had to be three.
A trifecta.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's the hangover? He's like, I was one lone wolf, and then I was two, whatever he said. But yeah,
I became a pack.
So we sent out the call on our favorite social site, Reddit, for a new member. And Jen answered that call. So we're thrilled to introduce Jen, the newest stranger to the podcast.
So glad to be here. And it was definitely meant to be because I never get on Reddit.
That seems to
So
be the
it-
theme. It's like,
That's how it was. Like
I
I never comment or do anything really on social media, and then I was just scrolling Reddit one morning and fuck it. So I just commented on Lee's post, and here we are.
I know.
Nice.
So yeah, it was meant to be. The universe has spoken.
Again.
Seems to be our running theme, huh?
Yeah. So you come to us with some podcast experience, which is very nice.
Yes.
And of course, I'm sure the reason why you found our Reddit in the first place is because you're in love with all the paranormal, true crime, supernatural stuff that we are.
All of those things. I am definitely no stranger to the spooky stuff. I come with a big background in folklore and paranormal, and historical true crime is also a favorite thing of mine, and really anything that can't be explained.
Nice. Yeah, it'll be a good, interesting shake-up of the show in general, adding your whole dynamic too, like with all the history and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we get some more in-depth stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be
Oh, I can't wait to just nerd out on some useless knowledge that I have.
awesome. Well, speaking of useless knowledge, let's fill everybody's head with useless knowledge. Wait, first, I want to back up, actually. I do this all the time. We, as a group, talked about kind of changing things up with timing of releases. So we are going to start releasing podcast episodes on Tuesdays instead of Mondays. It just gives me a little bit more time to dedicate to editing, since we're trying to do stuff on the weekends and have families and all that. But I was thinking, and I don't know if I really said this to you two, with that, the YouTube videos, I was thinking about releasing like midnight premieres. So kind of like Monday into Tuesday.
Oh yeah, that sounds sick.
Yeah.
And if we're free, I was thinking sometimes maybe we'll do like an hour live stream before the release, just to talk about the episode, answer questions about the episode or whatever, and just kind of hang out, like you said, nerd out.
I would love that.
Cool. All right. And so if you guys want to hang out with us, just let us know down in the comments. And we will try to set that up so we can hang out with you guys. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
I would love it.
Ooh. All right, Josh, what do you got for us as a topic?
Oh man. All right. So this one is, like we said, we're shaking things up. We're getting into a little bit of spooky season. This one's a little bit of true crimey, and allegedly the world's first female serial killer that we know of so far. I'm
Right.
talking about the Countess Elizabeth Bathory. You guys ever heard of her? I'm sure you have.
Yes.
You know, when you dabble in the world of the macabre, she's
I-
a pretty popular name.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So yeah, she's got like a lot of lore and gore attached to her. So her story has been embellished a lot over the centuries, but the truth is absolutely downright terrifying on its own without, the lore and the gore and the alleged 600 bodies that she killed.
Busy lady.
Pretty much.
Right? And she wasn't alive for like that long.
No, yeah.
like 50 years on this planet. I mean, and the funny thing is, you got to think too, is that to get in all that dress, that was like 3 hours of their day just
Oh.
for their servants to get them cinched and
No wonder
pulled.
why she was
And
murdering
yeah,
people.
I
Yeah, I'd be
mean,
mad as hell if I had to wear a corset like that all the
try a
time.
tight corset. Yeah, see how you feel.
No thanks.
No, I'm all right. I'm a
Look,
loose sausage.
We could ask the Kardashians.
they just like sew their skin up like a corset. They just keep
Oh.
sucking it in, sucking it in.
That's true.
But before we get into any more skin sucking, let me just put a little disclosure out there. If you're not into the gore and some of the more horrific aspects of life, this is your opportunity to check out. We will not be filtering ourselves from this point on. If the children are in the room, bedtime.
Hide your kids, hide your wives.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
maybe even grandma wants to leave the room for this one. So you've been warned.
For sure. So even before I get into anything, I really want to give a shout out to Kimberly Craft. Her book, The Infamous Lady, has been a ridiculously great resource for all the research and everything that went into this episode. Miss Craft spent years translating letters and documents from the 16th century to give us a more clear and precise view of what Elizabeth's life was really like and the crimes. And I don't know, I'm ready if you guys are ready to get into this.
Let's go.
All right. So Elizabeth Bathory, or Elizabeth. Nah, that was brutal. I'm not even.
That was close.
I'm just gonna stick with Elizabeth. So she was born August 7th, 1560, into one of the most powerful and noble families in Hungary, and they literally controlled everything in the whole country, pretty much.
Imagine being but I always think about this too, because I live near the original colonial America and all the colonies, and there's so much land out here, and you're thinking they just deeded 400 acres to one man.
Yeah.
Imagine you never even saw all that land. Most of these people never even saw every square foot of their property.
No, that's like how it is
No.
out here in North Dakota. A long time ago back in the day, all these Russians from Germany and stuff like that were able to come over here, and these farmers were like, hey, if you work my land X amount of years, I'll give you X amount of acres. And now that's how all these people have so much land out here. It's crazy.
Yeah. Now imagine that's countries. Here, this is all yours.
Yeah, this is all yours.
Yeah. Do what you wish.
Right?
Crazy.
What could go wrong?
Well, we're about to find out some real life Game of Thrones shit.
For real.
So her family pretty much controlled Hungary, and which I'm assuming is modern day Transylvania now.
I think
Yeah,
it's,
Slovakia,
changed.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Slovakia. Yeah, Slovakia. And Romania.
And there's and Romania, yeah.
Yeah. We're in that region. We are all
There we
around
go.
it, if not there.
Well, yeah, so there was a crazy speculation that her family might be related to Vlad the Impaler, aka Dracula. So it just adds more and more to her spooky bloody cake.
Yeah, she's just steeped in blood lore.
Oh man,
She couldn't help it. Yeah.
So a little bit about her childhood. It was obviously anything but ordinary because, for one, she was born in the 1600s. She was royalty, so she didn't really have to deal with all the peasant stuff and all the hardship and trials and tribulations of the time. She was just in her castle and lavishness.
Lucky.
Hmm.
A nepo baby.
For real though, like if there really ever was one, like she just got everything.
Yeah, pretty much. But you know, she did suffer from seizures, epileptic seizures, violent mood swings, and migraines from a pretty young age. And allegedly, you know, the epilepsy was due to inbreeding, which apparently happened a lot in the noble families. You know, I said Game of Thrones shit, so it's starting. You gotta keep that bloodline pure, but then, you know, copy of a copy of a copy just deteriorates.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, I just recently watched that episode of the X-Files where they're all like inbred and they look like this family lives in a house and shit like that. Yeah.
There's like a real, we've talked about this too on here. There's a real family.
Oh yeah.
House, the Whitakers.
Oh, yeah. And just while we're right here with her, just on the what we know now, just even if it was just straight up epilepsy, you know, without, you know, any cause like that, just think with no treatment like we have, you know, today, how much damage to the brain these untreated, you know, seizures could have inflicted, which I just think is also an interesting kind of thing to think about when we learn about what she might have done and later. And also a migraine with not even a Tylenol. I don't know.
No,
that's gonna make you.
I would.
Yeah. Would they do? Like just
angry,
put a candle in her ear or something?
Probably things just like
crazy medieval thing, bloodletting.
I was gonna say, yep. We'll have to do. Yeah, it's on our books to do a crazy medical treatments.
I live right by the I don't know if it's called the Mutter Museum, but it's like a museum just full of macabre stuff and like old like medical equipment and like body parts, and
that's so sick.
It's awesome. But like you were saying, Jen, that's a good point too, because there's no padding. Like they're in castles and this woman's probably seizing on the floor, just smacking her head on stone. And we know from like advanced science now that head injuries at an early age a lot of times are that contributing factor to a violent adulthood.
Exactly. So
there was, you know, political and religious divisions within her own family, and her parents were pretty much Protestant, but her uncle was Catholic, and Elizabeth was raised Calvinist, which I don't really know what Calvinist is.
I know enough to be dangerous, so I'm afraid to, you know, talking politics and religion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mess that up.
At least we know that much.
Yeah.
So like with all these different like beliefs, it really like put a strain at Thanksgiving dinner, you know what I mean? Like everybody was just not chill with each other. You know, that tension with all the different ideologies and the brutal realities of just living back in pretty much medieval times would have drove anybody insane, you know.
Constant wars over land, fear of losing all of your land and castles and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I couldn't even imagine the upkeep on a castle. It would be insane.
You gotta ask, what's the guy from Harry Potter with the cat?
Filch?
Yeah, he takes care of Hogwarts. He's in a shitty mood all the time.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't have magic, so.
Yeah, well, that's what it's like taking care of a fucking castle.
That's fair.
But I mean, that was the cool thing about, you know, being rich, was all of the peasants had to take one day a week, unpaid, and work for you.
What?
Yeah, they were never like free to leave. Not that anybody really wanted to leave because of said wars constantly.
It's not like Six Flags is down the street.
yeah, you've always got
Not going to medieval
was it
times.
the Turkish
Because these are the
army.
times.
Yeah, I think the Turks I think were
Mhm.
at that point anyway. But yeah, but yeah, no, they couldn't. Would have to ask permission, to like leave the kingdom, and they did all have to 1 day a week provide free labor, and that was not in lieu of taxes or whatever, but that was just one way they could pay for the protection that the nobility provided them. So there's your castle upkeep. Free and clear.
Like, could you imagine like trying to like travel anywhere in medieval times? Like, no, yeah, nobody wanted to go anywhere because it sucked getting to anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, if you were rich, you at least had some sort of like shock absorber on your carriage. Like if you were poor, it's just like wooden
just got
axle,
your
wooden
Lamborghinis.
wheels, just banging around. No, it's not fun. I'm good.
No. More trouble than it's worth.
Oh yeah. So I wonder if when they brought their servants and the townsfolk to come work on their castle, is that when like she would snag people and kill them and whatnot, because servants were apparently routinely beaten in front of her, and by the age of 6 she witnessed a public execution, which I guess isn't too crazy for the time because they were just killing people left and right for like willy-nilly.
Right. That's well, I mean, she was betrothed at 11. So you did have to grow up fast, I guess, but still 6 is quite the early age to see something like that, I would think.
And I'm sure it was like a gnarly medieval way of execution. I mean, probably beheading.
Oh yeah,
would be the tamest, I guess.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know, drawing and quartering sounds
Oh
savage.
there's a lot. I'm I'm leaving out a lot of things.
The wheel.
Play them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean like that environment plus, her seizures and her, having traumatic brain injury and stuff like that could definitely have played a huge part in how she grew up to just be savage and just kill people.
Married off and engaged at 11, like no time to develop any sense of identity or anything. You're just this royal thing that's moved around and taken care of, and you have no value for the servants or the people around you and their lives.
Yeah.
That's what, I was going to say, she would have definitely, well, I mean, even today we can see examples of this and, our upper class, how they would look at those not in the same class. But yeah, she would have definitely been, she was highly educated, she spoke 5 languages, and, not easy languages, of course she spoke Hungarian and could write, and she spoke Greek and Latin, and there was others that I just can't recall, but yeah, so she was very educated and would have been taught how to run a household. Not sure they went that far maybe, but she might have taken that a step too far. But that would have certainly, as as a woman, she would have been taught how to do that. Yeah.
I wonder how easier, if it would have been easier to learn different languages back then, because there's not as many of the modern day distractions. So that's all you have to do is just consistently study.
Yeah. I wonder too, because I have been trying to learn Italian. Don't ask me why Italian. I just think it sounds neat.
Italian
it's not super
is hard.
practical. Yeah. I can't. I mean, but I often think if I got sent to prison or something, I guess I would probably be able to learn Italian finally. With no distractions, no nothing. So yeah, I mean, I think they get to be a little smarter because, what are you going to do all day?
Right.
And the base languages are closer with less variation. Now there's so many dialects, it's so spread out. You come to America and how many different slangs and dialects and accents. And, she probably was I got one book, these are all the words in this language. I got another book, it's all the words in this language, and nothing changes.
I should probably learn this other book.
Yeah.
So I guess it's right around that marriage point where things start getting real brutal in and around her castle.
Yeah, so like we've been saying so far, she got engaged at the age of 11. But I mean, I guess back then, people had shorter lifespans. So I mean, maybe 11 was like the new 30.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. What was the average lifespan? It was like in your 50s, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I think it was. Like,
maybe, I'm sure some of the peasants are like, I'm 31.
yeah, because I mean,
instantly gets taken out.
They're doing like all the manual labor and working with whatever limited. So yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, a lot of stuff probably took them out.
Oh man,
trampled and just being outside in all kinds of terrible weather.
The plague.
Yeah, the plague went through there 3 times.
The common cold.
Oh god, yeah, seriously.
Yeah, a bunch of things that we take for granted nowadays. Like, I guarantee you, if you like time traveled and went back or like got dropped off in like this time period, you would not survive very long.
No.
It'd be a lot of collateral damage too. You'd kill a lot of people bringing back like these super bugs.
Oh yeah. You
just brought back like super bugs and everyone's dead.
Right.
Yep.
Because you decided to time travel and you're immune to COVID.
That is very true.
Oh man, time travel really fucks my brain up though.
It does me too.
We'll go back in time and erase that.
There we go. The joys of editing.
Boom.
So yeah, she was engaged at 11 to Count Fernic Nadsdy. Nasty.
I was thinking Yahtzee.
Yahtzee. So she got married to the game of Yahtzee. When they married in 1575, she was just 14. So at least they like waited a little bit till she was like a smidge older. And Fernic was 19. So I mean, I guess it's not the worst.
Yeah, that's not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
Despite that big age difference and the political nature of the marriage, Elizabeth was the more prominent figure because her family was more famous and had a higher status than his. But so it's like the top 2 families coming together and just ruling a bunch of shit pretty much because their marriage wasn't really
about... That's why they got married?
Yeah, because it was definitely not about love. It was for sure like politics and power.
It's a fairy tale.
We gotta talk about though really quick the part where though when as soon as she became engaged that then she had to go live with her in-laws.
Right.
Think about that tradition.
And then so like
and she gets to teach you everything, so you gotta listen to his mom. Yeah, for at least 3 years.
So she was such a prominent figure that Fernic literally took her last name, so he became Fernic Bathory Nasty.
Not so nasty now, is he?
He hyphenated his own name. Oh, you
that
nasty.
Is astounding, though. For that to happen in the Middle Ages. I mean, that blew my mind.
He goes on to make a name for himself. He goes on to fight the Ottomans in the war, and he eventually is called the Black Knight of Hungary.
Yeah. That's such a hard name, though.
Right?
It is.
Like I'm sure this guy, people are like, oh my God, that's the Black Knight of Hungary.
That would be
shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then they're like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah, and then meanwhile in the bar, they're like, he took his wife's name.
You know he's got a hyphen, right? Just like, who said that? Who said that?
I am the Black Knight.
You put some respect on my hyphen.
Oh, wow.
You're just mad because your winch ain't running shit.
Right? Yeah. Well, speaking of running shit, she was left in charge of the castle, and she wasn't too good at it. She was pretty bad at running things correctly.
Well, I mean, if you ask her, she was nailing it.
Nailing them bodies to the wall.
Yeah.
That's right. Nailing that coffin shut. 3 or 4 bodies in each one. Who knows?
oh man, it just takes me 3 hours to get dressed, but then I'm gonna, pencil in like a brutal murder here or there.
Yes.
Yeah, I got time.
And then I'll have to change again for dinner because I have obligations.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of rumors that started, as just whispers of like servants who died suddenly, often buried quickly without much explanation. This would catch the attention later on of like the priest of where she was living. Pretty much of like, hey, so like another servant died over at the Bathory castle. They need to do funeral rites because they slipped and fell or some other ridiculous accident. And then the priest was just like, okay, this is sus, so I'm gonna go and write you a very strong worded letter and tell you that this is not okay, and we're gonna be investigating you now, pretty much. All these servants died suddenly by accidents and then buried very quickly. The story started to circulate that her temper was like just increasing, and the violent behavior that she was showing just kept getting more brutal and brutal and brutal. And a bunch of corruption came from her aunt Clara, who pretty much introduced her to the darker and more scandalous side of like life and being pretty much a royal. So like her aunt Claire,
underground of royalty.
yeah, pretty much like the medieval Illuminati, I guess. So her aunt Clara introduced her to like orgies and shadowy circle of people that they would consider sorcerers, witches, and alchemists. So like a bunch of people that would hang out at Bohemian Grove, pretty much. And it wasn't until her husband's death in 1604 that things truly just spiraled completely out of control. Like she just got way more violent, way more brutal and savage, and just pretty much just went completely cold after her husband. So I mean, I guess she kind of loved him then, in her own weird way.
Or he was just enough like to keep her in check.
Oh, just to like give her that last little shred of humanity.
Yeah, just like she listened to like him enough to be like, I'm not gonna go this far because then we'll get caught. Like he had that sense.
Well, because I wonder, because he was like never there, always at war.
Yeah.
And it would be like a huge to-do that she would put on, and the entire kingdom when he would come home, because it was such a flippin' big deal because he was just literally never there.
Their wedding was 3 days long, and like 4,000 to 5,000 people attended.
Yeah,
literally an entire country, pretty
like
much.
the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, but I know from like movies like Robin Hood, like when the royalty's getting married, like it's a fucking deal. Like everyone's like, oh, it's the Queen's coronation, we gotta go, and everyone's fucking there. Everyone drops their shit and shows up.
So there's a theory that Bathory moved to Kechitis in 1604 after her husband died. Without her husband, Elizabeth's cruelty, like I said, became way worse. Rumors say that the acts are just become worse in his absence, but Frederick was the one that schooled her in the way of torture because he was just brutal as well. And that's sort of like what drew them together, once they became married and whatnot. They shared a love of torture and violence and just brutality.
Can't wait to get home to my wife. She's got a bunch of servants in the kitchen for me. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Instead of Netflix and chill, it's torture and chill.
Maybe we'll go to Home Depot. I don't know if we'll have enough time.
So just for instance, like he taught her techniques from like putting like pieces of paper that were soaked in oil between like servants' feet and having them restrained, and they would set the pieces of paper on fire. And then like for her pleasure one time, he had a girl restrained, lathered up in honey, and just a bunch of insects put on her, and they just ate her. I couldn't even imagine that.
How long did that take?
Right. I mean, what else are you gonna do? You just sit there and watch. I mean, there's nothing else to do, like we said
Well, they
earlier.
probably just walked away from her after a while. Like, we're done here. Like,
Come back a couple of days later, it's just, oh man, I couldn't even imagine.
Nothing left.
Could you imagine the servant having to clean up that other servant?
Oh, no.
No. That's a whole lot of mental stuff. I can't even imagine what they had to deal with. Like, one night they're like making dinner with this person, and then the next night they're like scraping him off the floor. Not fun.
I told Ferdinand not to overdo the potatoes. He always does this. Not anymore, Ferdinand. Not anymore.
It's rumored that he got her like gloves, like gauntlets with like claws on them, so she can like use them to scratch the servants and like cut the servants.
But can we take a second and appreciate how fucking metal that is, though? Like, I'm just picturing like the Lord of the Rings, like the Witch Queen King's arm, like his glove hand, where it's just
But he's just going around in these wars and picking up all these techniques from all these other like cultures of like how to torture and hurt people. He probably just found the glove on a battlefield and was like, I'm gonna give this to my wife.
Oh man, yeah, war trophy. Like you just said, on the battlefield, his cruelty was legendary, and he even danced with the bodies of his enemies. Just like picked up dead people and just started dancing with them.
That'd be
Like,
pretty terrifying.
Yeah. I'd be like, you know what? I have other things I would love to do today.
But pause. It's important to like clear this up. All this like really gruesome stuff we're talking about is still all alleged. Like we don't have video of her doing this. We only have hearsay from hundreds of years of telephone.
Yeah, it's so funny because when you think about, there actually was no eyewitness
To any of
testimony
this, pretty much.
ever.
Yeah, and it's crazy that later on we'll start getting into like, was this all really just made up for political agendas and aspects and just wanting to be after her wealth and her land? So other nobles just made up this ridiculous story to get her shit.
Yeah, there's arguments both ways.
True. I think we'll find that the truth's in the middle.
Yeah. So
Because I've gone like both ways and thought, oh yeah, I don't know if I believe 600 some, but I've, at different points at, years ago, I thought, oh no, she definitely, I think, and then I got really on the totally innocent, train. And now I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. So we'll see.
Right, because like I don't know if the math really adds up to like the 600 bodies, because like how many people would you like? That's a lot of people for one person to kill, or or husband and wife. Like I guess.
I also wonder how much, like we said, like it's a hard time just to live. Like if so and so just fell in the well, like oh man, Elizabeth got her. Like who people disappear. Someone kills someone else, and it's like,
fuck Elizabeth. She fucking did it.
Well, exactly. I mean, you just think things we don't even think about. I mean, your appendix ruptures, that's a like almost a same day surgery now, and you're out, you're good to go. Nobody thinks anything of it.
Oh,
That's
man.
good. If that happens to you in the in medieval times, that's a major problem. You're a cut on your finger.
Yeah, you're dead.
That's it. Sepsis. You're done. Yeah. So
we really take it for granted. We really do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm just sitting here thinking, like, man, I have kidney stones, and if I had kidney stones in the Middle Ages, it'd be game over. Like, I'd be so dead.
Yeah.
So by 1609, these rumors were impossible to ignore. Remember when I said that like all these servants were dying, and then the priest kind of started getting suspect of all this? It turns out that she wasn't just torturing her servants; she was allegedly doing it with the help of a small group of accomplices. And it didn't really start getting super bad until this lady named Anna Darvula showed up, and a lot of people described her as like a witch because she was just very like bitter and angry and cold and just very mysterious, and like a lot of bad shit kind of happened wherever she was.
Sometimes you're the problem.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And like her cruelty was supposedly said to be like inhuman, so like it just demonic levels of cruelty, like just real fucked up shit.
Yeah, now you're talking like two people at least. Now they're feeding off of each other. They're probably one-upping each other for each, like, it probably just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, the way that it kind of made sense to me was like, so Elizabeth's husband taught her how to torture, but this Anna lady taught her how to kill. So like she was kind of like just teaching her how to be like even more cruel and bitter and just savage.
Or we have like a master and apprentice type thing where like he taught her, he dies, she picks up an apprentice, but her apprentice is like super strong in the force and like she can't even control her.
You talking about the Sith rule of two?
No.
So Lee, have you heard of like anything, like any horrifying things that they would do to their victims, these two?
Yeah, the list goes on. So again, earmuffs, children, if you're in the room, leave. We're talking about like sticking needles under your fingernails, and like you said, burning your skin, biting the flesh of her victims and like eating or spitting out the flesh. Just unimaginable things, putting people outside and letting them freeze to death, starving people to death. She's known to have beat servants, like just beat them to death for minutes on end until the person is no longer breathing. Which, if you're anybody that knows anything about true crime, like there's two brutal ways like that are super personal to kill people. One is strangling with your hands, because you're face to face or up close and it takes a long time. And like to physically beat a person to death with your hands is probably one of the most horrific things that like a human could do.
Oh, it's definitely one of the most primal and savage for sure.
Yeah.
The rage that must have went in behind that.
And we haven't even gotten to like the alleged legend of her bathing in the blood of all these virgin servants, which definitely fueled her being like the whole vampire lore.
That's her like most famous one, but also the one that is like probably the quickest to disprove.
Oh yeah, because like I couldn't even imagine like how much blood it would take to literally fill up a bathtub.
Yeah.
30 humans, adult humans, every last drop to fill up a tub. That's the number.
Jesus Christ.
Right?
Is
That's
that
a
real?
lot. That's a lot. And on top of that, you wouldn't be in like liquid. Blood congeals. You'd
It'd
be
be all
so
sludgy.
like a jello separated
stockweed.
plasma serum goop.
Oh, that
Like,
is true.
It's not as Victorian romantic as we want to make it seem. Like she's like dripping blood on. Like no. She'd be cutting this stuff with a knife and like it'd be flan. Like
Maybe it was just more like the vampire facials that are popular now, with which I don't understand. but I
that
know
I'm
they're a thing.
sure.
Oh yeah, I'm for sure. Like she did like some Madame Lalaurie where she would just paint blood on her face.
Your master just walks out of the bedroom and she's just like wearing Claire's blood all over her face. She's like, I just hold up a sheet. I'm not here.
I would just hold up a very decorative oil painting.
Yep. Good day, madame. I'm a lamp.
I am lamp.
You are torch.
True.
I am torch.
Just, I'd rather light myself on fire than let her
I am
play
fire.
with my blood. Yeah, so she probably didn't actually bathe in blood. Sorry to disappoint. But like we said, that's a big part of where her lore comes from. And a lot of times if you mention her name, that's the first thing people will talk about.
So yeah, like we've been saying, her methods of torture have been just brutal. They varied from, minor things to just like pinching, kicking, to literally flaying people and sticking needles under their nails and who knows whatever else.
Yeah,
these victims were almost always like younger servant girls, and some of them were as young as 10. Like she was doing this to children. But I mean, I guess she was a child herself.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's young, but again, you never develop that value for a human life. So what's the difference when you're that detached. What's the difference between a child and adult? Like, it's all the
Yeah,
same.
you just don't have any morality, and you're just like, fuck it.
Well, and you have to think too. I mean, psychopathy isn't a new thing.
No.
It definitely would have very much existed in, people being born in the Middle Ages and before that. I mean, sometimes you've just got people that there's not much explanation other than they were just born with some deficiency, and it could also go back to the epilepsy,
Right.
untreated epilepsy. Yeah.
The serial killer chart, that's on there.
Hmm.
Child injury to the head at a young age. But what also is interesting is that when you talk about like a lot of mental illnesses like schizophrenia or any other kind of psychopathy, a lot of times it doesn't emerge until your mid to late 20s. So you're thinking like she's ramping up around this time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because as you said, when these things start becoming a little more, people are scratching their heads like, where are all these people going? Because of the rule that her servants did come from the village, or the, from around the kingdom. It would have been difficult even if parents, wanted to not have their children, their girls, go into her service. They don't have much of a say on that matter. And so that would have been a very terrifying prospect to be starting to hear all these rumors. And even if, and I think a lot of deaths were natural, because of the disease and all the stuff we talked about, how easy it really was to die, but still, when you have young, that would be a major red flag, because that's not gonna typically be your, these girls that are at least like you said, at least 10, you've survived all of the infancy, the major diseases and stuff like that.
You're probably actually some of the healthiest people on the planet right then.
Right.
Yeah. And coming in and doing, the housework, I mean, it's still going to be dangerous just because they have to and do everything. But it's still, maybe you wouldn't think of, to cause such a high mortality rate as, the people that are out, forging iron or, whatever in the fields and all that. So I just think about that, how terrifying it would be to know that you're sending, a child, and you can't leave, because you'd have to ask them to leave. And they're gonna say no.
That's it.
Or you run into the Ottomans if you just leave, and that's even worse because they're going to torture and kill you. So
You're just getting
for sure,
there's no winning.
yeah.
I'm just gonna stay put.
Yeah.
Well, even to the point that I'm sure that would turn neighbor against neighbor. Like if you have a daughter and they have a daughter, and like you see that guy coming, like, nope, honey, get under the hay bale. Like they'll take Jackie today. Like,
Yeah.
and then what would you
Constant
do?
survival mode.
Imagine like living next to your neighbor that just like sold off your daughter. No, you would kill him.
Yeah, 100%.
And then blame it on the Countess.
See, the perfect crime.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of her crimes, though, them bitches caught up to her. So the widow Countess was extending her abuse to higher class, so like other, lords and ladies, like family members and other prominent figures. So that's when people started taking notice, because apparently killing servants and stuff was, frowned upon. It's like, hey, like, we're not going to say you can't do that, but it's really not a good look.
And less taxes.
Yeah. And then
They're not here. If they're dead, they don't pay taxes.
Right. So now I got to start paying like taxes. Like, come on, dude. Like, you're fucking me up right now. Yeah. So like killing other nobles was just obviously a serious crime. So it's how she started getting on people's radar. By 1610, King Matthias II of Hungary owed the Bathory family like a big debt. And so he just heard all these rumors and he's like, nope, we're going to investigate that shit instead. I ain't going to pay you nothing. So he got his boy Georgi Thruzo, the most just despicable sounding name ever.
He's like the little finger of this play.
Just think of like some like really bad like Danny DeVito looking guy mixed with
Cheap
Ron
ass cute.
Jeremy.
Little chest hairs.
It's a big gold chain,
I'll get it for you, King. Don't worry, I got you.
real big pot belly. Oh yeah, just the whole thing. Don't worry, King. We'll get that money for you. Yeah.
This broad ain't running this city.
Oh, she thinks that she can run a country, but you're the king of Hungary. So Georgie Thruzo, you got to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's a relative and friend of Elizabeth's dead husband. So that's how he kind of had that in. And so the investigation uncovered enough evidence for them to arrest her.
Evidence. Still don't know what kind of evidence they got. I'm assuming it's just
Hearsay.
coercion and more abuse and torture.
Yeah, right. So like we said, we don't know who they talked to, but allegedly there was 300 witnesses, and some of these confessions or eyewitness accounts definitely conflicted with each other. So like we keep saying, it was probably not real, and they were just trying to come up with some way to get her shit.
Yeah, Thruzo's there, just like, you're gonna tell me that they were there at the same time because your friend in the other room is telling me something different.
Yeah.
Your friend's already turned on you.
He's saying it was all you, buddy.
Well, and it's like, even if, the witnesses, weren't being tortured or anything, you still have such a misappropriation of authority. You've got these upper class, these noblemen, and you're down here, and that, your place,
Right.
and I'm sure it was obvious to them what they wanted them to say.
Right.
I'm sure it wasn't, some, police method of, questioning that we have now to prevent false, confessions. I'm sure that it was very clear what they wanted to hear. And of course they want to make them happy.
Right.
Because the consequences, they don't know how bad the consequences could be if they, were to not say what they wanted them to say. Well, and this is the Salem witch trials are going on, across the pond. So it's like, really, nothing was going well, no matter where
Nobody
you were.
is having a good time at all. Straight up not
really-
having a good time, bro. So obviously it's clear that she was found guilty because of all these rumors, and all these nobles were pretty much just like, nope, we're gonna do this anyway with our 300 witnesses. But this isn't privilege of being in the upper class. I don't know what is.
What-
She wasn't executed.
That's privilege for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
You know what I just thought of? Like, so she's locked away, but presumably there's still servants serving her
Yeah.
in some capacity, right? Like, so, like, even at like your lowest, you found out, you're caught, you're isolated to this castle, but you're still like 3 square meals and
Yes,
3 hots and a cot. Yeah.
but her accomplices, they're executed
yeah,
very
Right.
badly, but
gotta have
not
someone
her.
dead.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wonder what happened to that Anna lady if she just dipped when the going was getting tough. She's like, you know what? I got priors. I've got a warrant
Takes
in
off a mask.
Mississippi. I know you
Yeah.
don't know what Mississippi is, but I have warrants.
I
I'm
heard about this
pretty
really cool thing going
sure-
on in Massachusetts.
Something about witches.
Witches? Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember. I won't say if she was she was definitely one of her accomplices, but I don't know. I can't remember if she was one of them that was executed, but certainly her other close accomplices, they were, I think, burned.
Oh,
Or at
that
least
was
one of
probably
them
the way
was
to go.
burned.
It'll be such
That-
a bad
yeah.
way to die.
That's one of the
Mhm.
worst.
So yeah, like she obviously wasn't executed, but she was just pretty much confined to
House
her
arrest.
chambers in her own castle.
Right.
And then
That-
she just died in 1614.
That Al Capone treatment, like, put me in jail, but give me like a custom room and all the trappings of
Oh, yeah.
mobster anyway.
Yeah. she didn't have any secret tunnels to escape or do some, cartel shit.
But with over 400 years passed since Elizabeth's death, her stories are still being brought up to this day. She's mentioned in video games, books. There's plays about her. There's movies. Like, since the 1970s in pop culture in America, like, it has not stopped. Like, there's been a year or two off where, like, she hasn't been in some kind of major media production.
Right.
And even like we were talking about earlier, so much of things like Dracula and there's American Horror Story. She's an American Horror Story as Lady Gaga.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, but I like that it's like got that historical aspect to it too, because it's crazy to think that that's actually something that happened.
Yeah,
That these
and
people pretty much are like, hey, no, you,
I was just gonna say, I think I love these historical, true crime, because I mean it's frustrating on one hand, but we can never really know,
Yeah, but it's
what the
it's
truth
one of those
was.
things- Yeah, it's fun
So
to get your hands dirty because again, I'm never gonna victim blame, and I'm never gonna try to make anything off the backs of victims. But these people we're talking about were born and died 400 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna offend close relatives or their living kin, and it just allows you to kind of get a little bit messier than you would want to in like a current day true crime story.
You can speculate a lot more.
Yeah.
yeah, because it's medieval history. Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
And this story in particular really like straddles that line between like complete like fantasy crazy rumor and everyday mundane middle-aged life. Like we talked about this whole episode, how shitty it was to be a peasant.
to live back then.
And it really does, like, it points out that contrast of, like you said early in the episode, Josh, nepotism. Like the only reason why she was where she was at is because she was born there.
Yeah, because she was born a noble. That's like if she was born a peasant, she would have been dead, or you would never hear about this story.
Right.
Nope. It's crazy, man. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that episode. I know we really did. I know me and Josh have kind of been waiting to do this. And if you have suggestions for historical topics you want us to cover, again, comments, let us know. Email us, ssospodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. We appreciate all the feedback. And again, we're sorry for the shakeup and the delay on the episode release. We'll be back on track. Jen, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great time. I'm really looking forward to doing more of this.
Yeah, I can't
me
wait.
too.
I'm so glad you're here now.
Thank you.
If everybody wants to follow us on our social medias, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, we have Facebook now.
Yeah, I got like 4 followers.
Yes, a solid 4 on Facebook.
Rock on.
But Facebook's dying anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's dying.
Yeah.
Check out our latest episode that came out as we're recording this. It came out today. We interview Stephen and Leslie Shaw. They're authors of a great book. You can check out our TikTok, our Instagram. I posted stuff on there. If you like UAP, you like UFOs, they're a good jumping off point.
That's
All right,
it for
everybody.
me.
Thank you for listening.
Later.
If you would
Peace.
like to join us as
Bye.
a guest, suggest a topic, or have a story you want us to share, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at ssospodcast@gmail.com. For more behind-the-scenes updates and exclusive insights about SSOS, make sure to follow us on social media. And don't miss out on the fun. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, thank you for listening to the Secret Society of Strangers podcast. This show is an independent production, researched and crafted by our passionate team. But we couldn't do it without all of you. We truly appreciate your support. Embrace the unknown, for not all secrets are meant to be kept. Farewell, strangers.